Hello everyone, welcome to Unit 4, Comparison Contrast Essays. After studying the first 3 units, you are now able to write descriptive and narrative essays effectively. Today, we will move on to the next type of essays, which is Comparison Contrast Essays. I would like to start Unit 4 with some warm-up questions. Can you look at the photo and answer the questions on the screen? As you can see, the first picture shows an open learning environment where both teacher and students stay outside, while in the second picture, the teacher and students are in the theater. They are friendly in the first picture and more formal in the second picture. The first picture is more appropriate for psychology and literature classes, and in the second picture, you can see that it is more appropriate for engineering classes. Comparing things will be a common activity at higher education level. That's why it is important to learn how to write a comparison contrast essay. By the end of Unit 4, you will be able to recognize the organization and write an effective short comparison contrast essay. Identify and use specific vocabulary and structures to write a short comparison contrast essay. To meet those objectives, we are going through the following parts in Unit 4: stimulating ideas, brainstorming and outlining, comparison contrast connectors, and editing your writing. Let's start with the first part, stimulating ideas, in which we are going to explore a text, learning about differences by reading, understanding, and responding to the text. I would like to ask you to spend some minutes reading the text and then answer the questions under it. You can see the list of new words on the right of the text. To understand the text better, let's do the reading comprehension on the slide. Please decide if each statement is true or false. And now, can you answer the questions on the screen to get the details of the text? You have some minutes to answer the questions. After we have finished exploring a reading text, we now continue with the second step of our writing process, which is also part 2 of Unit 4. We are going to firstly brainstorm, then study the organization of a comparison contrast essay before making an outline of the essay. Let's start with brainstorming ideas. Can you look at the Venn diagram and find out how many differences you can see in the diagram? Let's continue with brainstorming vocabulary. You need to match the verbs on the left with a noun on the right. We have completed the step of brainstorming, and now let's study the comparison contrast essay organization. A comparison contrast essay uses points of comparison to show how the two topics in the same category are similar and or different. A comparison contrast essay can focus on similarities, differences, or both, depending on the writer's purpose. The comparison contrast essay has 3 parts. Number 1, introduction. The introduction presents the subject that is to be compared or contrasted and provide background information that helps the reader understand the writer's point of view. The introduction ends with a thesis statement that focuses the essay. The second part is body paragraphs. The body paragraphs have clear topic sentences that communicate whether the controlling idea will focus on similarities or differences. Each topic sentence is followed by supporting ideas about the topics. The topics being compared are addressed in the same order of clarity. The last part is conclusion. The conclusion summarizes the differences and similarities. The writer draws a conclusion based on the information presented in the body paragraphs. To understand the comparison-contrast organization better, let's complete this exercise. You need to read the essay and examine the organization of the essay by answering the questions under it. Here are the questions. You have some time to answer the questions. Shall we compare your answers with the suggested one? Number 1. The author compares New York and Quetzaltenango. Number 2. The last sentence of the introduction is the thesis statement. Number 3. We can see they have some features in common. Each city has a nickname and a central park, and many tourists and people from other countries. Conversations in both places are interesting because the people are so diverse. Number 4. The writer enjoys both places for different reasons. However, the author also appreciates the similarities between them. To help you imagine an outline of a comparison-contrast essay, we are going to make an outline based on the essay, My Two Homes, by filling in the blanks. You have some minutes to fill in this outline. And here is the answer. We can find all 3 important sentences in the introduction. We can also find 3 similarities in the first body paragraph. Then we can find 2 differences in the second body paragraph. The conclusion ends with the author's feelings about the 2 cities. After having studied how to brainstorm and make an outline, we now move to developing ideas. In a comparison-contrast essay, we need to use connectors because connectors help create coherence by indicating the relationship between ideas in sentences. Some connectors are used to show similarities, such as like and a noun phrase, or similarly. Here are some examples. Some connectors are used to show contrast, such as unlike and a noun phrase, or in contrast. Please study the examples on the screen. So we have looked at the organization and ideas of a comparison-contrast essay, and now we will move on to language focus. We will study how to use comparatives in comparison-contrast essays and comparatives in sentences. First, using comparatives in comparison-contrast essay. Comparison-contrast essay often use comparatives. Comparatives are used with adjectives, adverbs, and nouns to show differences between 2 subjects: people, objects, ideas, places, and actions. Comparatives with adjectives and adverbs. To form the comparative of one-syllable adjectives and adverbs, we can add ER. If the adjectives or adverbs end with single vowel and consonant, we need to double the consonant. This is the example: tall, taller, cold, colder. To form the comparative of most 2-syllable adjectives and adverbs, we need to add more, such as more beautiful. However, if the adjective ends with in LE, we need to use R, like simpler. If the adjective ends with a consonant, Y, Change Y into I and add ER, for example, happier. Some adjectives and adverbs have irregular forms. For example, would and wow will be changed into better. What about comparatives with nouns? To form the comparative of nouns, we need to use more with nouns. For example, more books. When we use a comparative in a sentence, we sometimes delete the second subject and verb. We also sometimes use the comparative without than when the context is clear. For example, people in Stella are less stressed than New Yorkers are. New Yorkers are always rushing around. People in Stella are less stressed. That's all about comparison-contrast essays. In summary, we have looked at a number of important points under rhetorical focus. We have learned the organization of a comparison-contrast essay, introduction, in which we can find the hook to attract the reader's attention, background information, and a thesis statement, body paragraphs to show similarities or differences, and conclusion to show the summary of differences and similarities. We have also been able to go through some language and grammatical focus by studying how to use comparison-contrast connectors, using comparatives in comparison-contrast essays, and using comparative in sentences. I strongly believe that you can now be able to, it is my belief that you now can compare and contrast things from now on. Thank you for your listening and see you again in Unit 5.